toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome on to another edition here of the Patriots Touchback Podcast. It is, where are we now? Episode 22, Season 2. It's getting very, very long-winded now, and we have reverted back to type. We are back to normal as usual, dropping another loss, 2017 overtime to the Tennessee Titans. We've got a lot to get through. We've got Nick, we've got JD, we've got Kieran with us today. Before we get cracking on with the show, make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe button while you're at it. You tell all your friends, follow us on all our social media, podcast on our platforms, so I beg your pardon, and follow the podcast on Spotify and the Sports Social Network as well. Let's introduce to the panel. We've got a long one to do, and this is going to be a frustrating one at best. Nick, JD, Kieran, good evening, gentlemen. How are we doing? Have you had a good weekend, bar the sport?
Hi.
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, it was a weekend of just late disappointment. So, being an Ipswich Town fan, we lost we threw away a lead 94th minute against Leicester on Saturday. To go to Sunday, hoping the Patriots are going to pick up a win and go on a 2-game win streak, and then we lose in overtime. So, in terms of disappointment from sports, it's been a pretty terrible weekend. But hopefully, this week will make up for it.
Absolutely. My weekend wasn't great for sport related either, but I always leave that to the side. We're going to here to talk about Patriots losing another game, falling 2-7, losing 2017 in overtime to the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to start off with the better side of news, okay, and that is Drake Maye obviously having his fourth start. He did throw a touchdown, but also threw 2 interceptions as well. But there's a reason being why this kid had a lot of hype, a lot of very good videotape coming out of college at the NCAA. What we witnessed against Tennessee this week just gone is the reason why we took him third overall. The kid just does things off the fly. I don't think I've ever seen really many callbacks to Josh Allen, Justin Herbert spring to mind in regarding of what he does. He made some decent throws, but he was scrambling for a lot, running away from the pocket, because we will talk about the interior offensive line because that was an absolute shambles in that game. But JD, Drake Maye, good performance, average, or was it a bit
I think this is what happens when you ask a rookie QB in his fourth start, I'd say third, given that we barely saw him in the Jets game, to drop back 52 times. And I think we only ran the ball on 12 design runs, but I'd still think that was too many, just because we can achieve nothing in the run game. And we have a 22-year-old QB who is in his third full game, and we're saying, mate, just go out there and put the team on your back. And I think he did. I think it's perhaps an adjustment period for us as Patriots fans, because we're used to a certain type of quarterback. Tom Brady won mentally, and he made the right decision and always did the sensible, correct thing. Drake Maye is like you mentioned, more in that Josh Allen mold or Justin Herbert kind of mold, where he reminds me a little bit of sort of Ben Roethlisberger to a degree. Hopefully a better person than Ben Roethlisberger was. But it's hard to be worse. But he, that kind of double-edged sword of, you would see the insane, never say die attitude that results in things like the final play of regulation, and some of those wonderful little plays that you saw with him rolling right and threading a needle and over the top to Pop Douglas on the sideline, or that little pitch that he had to Ramondre Stevenson when he was surrounded by Tennessee players. Just wonderful plays, but they are also that comes with that never say die attitude is the negatives, like the going for the kill shot on first down with 2 minutes left in OT when we didn't need to. And then saying, I feel like I just underthrew it because of the wind. And it was like, Drake, you threw that 60 yards. I don't think you can throw that much further. But I think that's a rookie learning curve. And I think something we have to adapt to as Patriots fans, having a rookie QB, but also having a QB who is more a playmaker than a game manager.
we'll break down that play with you in just a little bit. Okay, let's go to the other team first. Nick, what about you? What did you make of Drake Maye's performance?
I mean, as a generalization, yeah, he put the team on his back and he carried them. We had 316 yards of offense. Drake Maye accounted for 301 of them.
95% of the offense.
Yeah, it's
Maye.
like that. That is too much to put on a rookie QB. You know, you're either going to burn him out or you're going to get him injured, because you are asking the guy to do far too much. You know, I get it. He's competitive. He's got raw talent. You know, it carries the team at the moment when we're not good, but you have to be careful. And this was one of the things that I said about when I said that I wasn't sure about putting him in. It wasn't to do with his skill level. It was to just do with I didn't want to see him injured or burnt out before we've got a chance to, you know, use him properly. And I just think, you know, if he had more help on the O-line, he wouldn't be doing as much. But I think he feels like he's got to do it all himself.
I mean, this offense was primarily going through Drake Maye, and for someone who's now on his fourth start, we're asking too much of him. Yes, we know how athletic he is. Yes, we know how he's got a very, very good skill set. But there's a reason being we're sitting here at 2-7, and that is because of everything around him is just landfill. He's got nothing to throw to, and you might as well have 5 bowling balls in front of him as an offensive line, and they can probably protect him better and have fewer holes. But anyway,
I mean, to demonstrate how bad, I know, Kieran, you're saying there that the 316 yards is without taking away sacks, because sack yardage takes away from total team yardage. So if you count those, the Patriots only had 295 yards, and Drake Maye had 301. Which I just think is
my word.
But somehow he ends up with more yards than the entire team, which I think is quite funny.
It's funny, but it's also scary at the same time.
It's an indictment of our run game.
It's an indictment of our run game. It's an indictment on our offense.
I mean,
just in total.
The run game, I mean, against Cincinnati and against Seattle, we played a really nice run game. You know, I think we ran for 150-something and 170-something. Don't quote me on those numbers, but I think it's something similar to that. But the fact is, after 2 games, we gave all the teams footage and film on how to defend our run game. So now every single team we come up against is defending our run game because they don't fear our pass game, because we've got wide receivers that can't catch a cold, you know, and with the exception of Hunter Henry, who seems to be sort of Drake's favorite target, he can't always get open. That teams don't worry about our pass. And so we've seen our sort of run game dip, and it's not through, you know, having a bad run game. It's just teams are defending against the run because they don't fear the pass game. And that comes down to our receivers.
Well, that was the whole point of Layden Robinson starting back at right guard in this instance. And unfortunately...
Less said about that, the better.
Well, it blew up spectacularly in our face, and that's why the running games, we were running up the middle, running to the right, and guess what? We were getting barely, I think it was like on average 1.25 yards per carry. That is grossly disgusting.
We're averaging negative yards before contact. Over the last 4 games... I mean, the Jets game, I think, was like minus 31 yards. It was minus 9 at the weekend. Minus 9 yards before contact. Our running backs have to break tackles to get back to the line of scrimmage.
That's not Ramondre Stevenson's game, though.
But I think even if you go back and we talked about that Cincinnati game at the beginning of the season, and we broke down a couple of plays where he was making people miss at or behind the line of scrimmage and busting big plays. We have 1 run over 10 yards in the last 4 weeks. Like that's not sustainable offensively. Meanwhile, our run defense is giving up 5 yards to carry to the opposition, which is just, you're not going to win games like that, unfortunately, especially with the rookie QB.
We made Tony Pollard look like bloody Eddie George out there. It was that embarrassing. Kieran, we'll move over to you. What was your take on Drake Maye's performance?
Well, yeah, I agree with everything that you guys have said. I think you've hit the nail on the head, all of you. I think it is quite clear that he is extremely talented, and that it leaves you wanting. Like, you see what he's doing at 22 in his fourth start with a team full of nobodies around him, and the things he's still able to achieve, and it makes you think, oh my God, imagine if he had some surrounding talent. This guy would be absolutely unbelievable. Like, and it gives us hope for the future that if we can continue to build the roster around him, that we've got our guy. And I think that considering the cards he's been dealt, he has done remarkably well. Yes, there's going to be teething problems. He didn't need to throw the deep shot to Booty on first down with 2 minutes left in overtime, but it's rookie mistakes. And when you put the entirety of your expectation of the team on one guy after 4 starts, you're asking for it. Yeah, it shouldn't be all down to him, and he's having to shoulder that because he is the only good thing about our team at the moment. And yes, it looks like we've nailed that pick, but you should be doing that with the 3rd overall pick. And like, just go back to what you said about, the amount of yards that Drake accounted for. Karl, you said in the green room that 5 of the 10 offensive linemen on our roster weren't with the team in training camp. I heard a stat the other day that 14 of our current players on the 53-man roster were either released by teams this calendar year or were signed off practice squads. That doesn't include Jeremiah Farms, who we signed off our own practice squads, the active roster. That doesn't include adding Jalen Hawkins, who was released prior to the calendar year. And that doesn't include signing Del Pettis as the UDFA. So over 30% of our roster are fringe, like, roster bubble players that other teams don't want. And that is what we are dealing with. That's the reality. And that's why I don't want to lambast the defense too much about giving up 6 yards of carry. Because like I said before, like I've been saying it for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've got guys that nobody else wants trying to start for us and play like 50, 60, 70% of the snaps. So that's the reality of the team. And that comes down to poor roster building. You can't do everything through the draft. And I know it wasn't a fantastic free agent class, but still, they're filling out the roster spots with trash rather than using some of the money to at least plug gaps for the time being, to at least be serviceable. And ultimately, as I said before, the buck lies with Elliott Wolf. And like, they're not going to sack him this year. But if he doesn't improve this roster massively with $150 million in good draft picks next year, that guy, I will fly to Boston and drive that guy out of Foxborough.
Joey McHugh.
Do you want to know something quite damning? Last season, we finished 4-13. The Washington Commanders also finished 4-13. What they did in the offseason is they took out 2 of their worst linemen and brought in 2 new guys from the draft. They're sitting at 7-2 right now with Jaden Daniels. So to say it will take multiple years, Washington are borderline and nearly a Super Bowl contender with the way they're playing right now. And maybe that has got to do something to do with coach, new coordinators, and so on.
Yeah, I think you see with Washington, like Jaden Daniels is dropping back 30 times a game. I think he's got something like 280 dropbacks, and he's played the full season. Drake already has like 160, and he's played in essentially 3 games. Like Drake's averaging dropping back something like 45 times a game in the full games that he's played, which is insane. That we're asking somebody like, well, these mistakes are going to come that we've talked about. It's going to happen because he's just dropping back so much. Jaden Daniels is dropping back 30 times a game. Like he's having these opportunities for him to make mistakes are not there. And again, Drake was supposed to be a player that was raw coming out, and I have been so impressed with how far ahead of the curve I thought he is compared to where I thought he was going to be. Jaden Daniels is a much more experienced college player. Him and Bo Nix were expected to come out and hit the ground running. That wasn't supposed to happen with Drake Maye, and I think I'm absolutely starstruck with how further ahead he is than I thought he was going to be. But I think you're absolutely right. There's just no to sit there and expect a 22-year-old rookie to do it on their own and just drag a team. that he has no run game, a defense that can't get off the field. I think it was. I mean, it's difficult.
And once again, like, we sit on our hands and we go back to the offensive line situation. Like, we do not have bad running backs. Like, Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson are good running backs. Like, even I think Jermichael Hasty as a third string is not an awful third string. But our run block in the last few weeks has been appalling. And yet, what do they do today? They release one practice squad guard for another one. Like, I wasn't expecting us to make any moves on the trade deadline, but at least, like, try and do something. Like, I know we've not got a lot. We want to try and preserve picks and stuff, but even a pick swap, if you can get a guard in there, like, or acquire a tackle for a late round pick or whatever, just to do something, because this can't continue. You can't have Drake Maye dropping back 50 times a game for the rest of the season because Stevenson and Gibson are being stuffed in the backfield every time. Like, it's how many times have we been talking about this, the O-line problems, and it's gone from pass protection, which I think a lot of it is Drake is negating with his mobility, and kind of papering over the cracks. But now it's coming down to run blocking and relying on our QB to scramble for 95 yards a game just to have anything on the ground. It's just scandalous. And, like, I don't know whether it's poor coaching or, like, I certainly think there's some poor play calling in there. Like, I don't know where we go from here, because, like I said before, like, I think AVP has done a reasonably good job with coaching Drake Maye and developing him, but he's not a good play caller.
He's a shocking play caller.
Like, do you keep him in place in a certain position but change the play caller? I think that's got to be in consideration.
How many times are we going to see the inside zone play over and over again when it comes to the running game and it doesn't bloody work? How many more times?
The issue I have with the play calling is that, and I think I've mentioned before, is that the type of run scheme we're running when we run the ball doesn't marry up to the type of run scheme we run in our play action. So we run traps on play action and we run outside zone play action, but we never run the ball in those formations, in those schemes, which is insane to me, because the whole point is we need to make the defense think we're running the ball. And we're not doing that. We ran a trap play action play for that one-handed catch that Pop had. And it worked brilliantly because the linebacker got stuck thinking that we were going to run the ball. And it was just about the only time play actions worked. And this is what makes, to me, Drake's performance all the more impressive when he's not getting any help from any of the typical avenues. We're terrible at play action. We can't run the ball. We don't have any defensive help for him. All of these things that you typically think of to help a rookie QB, we're just not doing. And he's still playing well, which is what kind of, I think, is such a surprise. But the run game and the sequencing of play calls for me, I think, is a big problem.
But it's also coaching at the end of the day and planning as well. Planning is so important when you go against any of these teams. I'm going to ask you a question to the panel, okay? Who is the most dangerous player on that Tennessee front seven?
Jeffrey Simmons all day long.
Why the fucking hell was Layden Robinson a right guard and Michael Weather a right tackle then? Because that went well, didn't it?
But I also think Ben Brown got victimized by him as well. I think he had his way with everybody. And I think the Ben Brown kind of excitement has died down a bit because he's kind of had his arse handed to him by Quinnen Williams and Jeffrey Simmons in back-to-back weeks now, where he's looked like a practice squad player.
I mean, he's effectively third choice anyway. You know, you've lost David Andrews for the season. You lost Jake Andrews for the season in preseason camp. So your first two centers, effectively, you've lost for the season. We've had to get him in. He's effectively third, and this is the point.
Well, fourth, because we had Nick Leverett as well, and then we binned him up. So he's even worse.
We're still waiting for Cole Strange to come back as well.
I mean, where's Caden Wallace?
IR, isn't it?
He's still on IR. I think he's a couple of weeks away.
So, you've got Carl's favourite veteran Lowe at left tackle, and
bring it out.
I don't know. Do you move Layden Robinson to left guard?
I mean,
is it
Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan.
Perry should play right tackle, and when you should be right guard. Trey Jacobs should be right tackle, and when you should be right guard. And then I don't know, but the whole line is not good enough. I didn't want to re-sign Owenu to start with, but
he's the only main.
You can only fill so many spots at once.
I think if you look at this line completely, it's only David Andrews and Michael Onwenu that's actually worth starting on this line. Everybody else is just practice squad fodder or just simply not good enough.
But Michael Onwenu, I think he's been poor this year, wherever we've played him.
I think that's because a lot of that, I think he's feeling the pressure. He's supposed to be the only dependable lineman, and I think he might feel it's all on him. Look at what he's surrounded by. Or is he a guy that's made to look better because of the players he's played with previously? I don't know, but we need to get Caden Wallace back and get him at right tackle. We need to have a look at what we can do with Cole Strange, where he's going to play centre. And Michael Jordan's been sort of up and down at guard, and he got completely lost on the game time touchdown. You just see that video where he was just kind of wandering around in the wilderness, didn't know what the hell he was doing.
So how do you go about protecting Drake Maye from both the opposition and himself when you haven't got the tools up front to do that job? And this is the whole point of why I was reluctant to put him in to start with. It only takes one bad performance and he's going to be clobbered hard. I mean, all right, he was in concussion protocol, but he only needs one bad play and he could be clobbered hard and out for the season. He's taking risks because he feels he needs to. But the problem is we shouldn't be putting him in that position.
No. I mean, I imagine that what they're hoping to get to with the line. I mean, it's just speculating that they'll want to get Strange back. They want to get So healthy, Wallace healthy, and then at least provided a strong interior. But I don't know how soon those guys are going to be back. One thing I think we need to look at, and I don't know, a lot of teams don't run with it anymore, but why not just get a guy to play fullback? Look how effective James Devlin used to be back in the day, and some teams still run with it. The Ravens have a remarkable run game because Pat Ricard just smashes holes open for Derrick Henry. Use check with the 49ers. There are other teams around the league that utilize a fullback to obviously get that additional blocking and as a lead blocker. And if we're struggling, like you said, our running back's being hit behind the line of scrimmage, maybe bring in a big fullback to bulldoze a guy out of the way to open up a hole. That might be another way you could get some extra run blocking and maybe a little bit of extra pass pro in there for Drake. I don't know why we don't look at that.
It's still the coach's issue to deal with this offensive line. At the end of the day, Onwenu should have been a right guard from the very start of the game because Jeffrey Simmons was just taking over our line and it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all.
I can see why they did it with the idea of getting the O-line and the run game going again, and that is Layden Robinson's strong point. His run blocking was good when he was in before. He struggled in pass protection, but I kind of applaud them that they realised pretty good. And they've been pretty quick this year. They chucked Scorafor in week 1 where it was like, look, this isn't working, get him off, swap it out. And I applaud that they tried something, it didn't work. They tried to fix it. I think this for me was a game, especially on the O-line and on the D, where it was like, we just don't have the horses. And it's alarming that was evident against Jacksonville. It was evident against Tennessee that we're playing against teams that are poor. They are the bottom end of the NFL talent level. And it's evident that we do not have the horses to keep up with them. We're not good. Against Houston, that was to be expected. You got against that team, that's a really good team. They're going to take us to the woodshed because they're just so much more talented. But not against teams that are 1-6, 2-5. We shouldn't be getting beaten like that and dominated by those guys. And it is just evident how talent poor the roster is.
It's not
great.
When
you're over 30% of the roster, like I said, that those players I read off earlier, over 30% of your roster are either ex-practice squadders or players that have been cast aside by another team. What does that tell you? The roster is a complete and utter mess.
Cheers, Bill. Right.
And Elliot. He ain't done enough either.
Well, yeah.
And Matt Groh, 2 fingers up to you as well, because what do you actually do?
Yeah. Right. JD, we're going to do breakdown of the final play of the game. This was an OT. I want to ask one question to the power forward we do this, okay? Did we make the right decision in going for the PAT after the touchdown? Or should have we gone for the kill and gone for 2?
I would have gone for 2.
Nick?
I'd have gone for 2. As I understand it, they chose not to because they weren't happy with their plays, the plays that they had on offer. They didn't have any faith in them. But I'd have gone for 2.
Defensive-minded coach. Always doing defensive-minded things. Todd Bowles did exactly the same. But yeah, he's got more power on the offense than what we have for the Bucs. Yet they still kicked the PAT in Arrowhead. Really. Anyhow. Kieran, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I feel like if we'd have gone for 2 and not got it, we'd have been like, oh, why have they done that for? Because we could have taken it to overtime. Like,
so damned if you do, damned. But here's what I don't
yeah,
get.
damned if you don't.
We've gone for
ultimately.
We've kicked the PAT, gone to OT. We haven't won the coin toss. So Tennessee get the ball first. They run through us. We stop them for a field goal, and then we have to get our offense out to actually get us down the field because a touchdown ends it.
In all fairness, they stopped themselves. They fumbled the
snap.
I was going to.
They fumbled the snap. Yeah, they did fumble the snap. That's fair. They fumbled
twice.
They fumbled twice in overtime and still managed a game-winning drive. How does that happen?
They made some daft decisions. The Tennessee coaching staff, they really did in that game.
But I think in overtime, they did what the Jets didn't do last week and what Jacksonville did do, and is realize these guys can't stop the run for shit. So we're not going to throw the ball. We're just going to hand the ball off and run all the way down the field. And the only reason it stopped is because they fumbled a snap.
That was the reason. But
I think the primary reason.
But there was still plenty enough time for us to win the game.
I don't think he should have took the deep shot because it was 2 minutes and we was around 40 or around 45-yard line, something along those lines. Yeah.
Well, he just scrambled for a first down, so like he didn't really need to do that. Like do we have a timeout on the board at that point?
I think we had a timeout. On the board.
To just keep progressively moving it down the field and give yourself a realistic shot at the end zone. Like I can see why. You're a young player. You're in overtime. Your team's been like completely devoid of wins for God knows how long. And you see Kayshon Boutte down the field and think, oh, if I just hit this, this could go, we could get this. And suddenly his name's shining in lights and it's a heroic play. Just after throwing a hero play on the last play of regulation, he's probably thinking, I can do this. But it wasn't the right decision to make. And that just comes down to inexperience at the end of the day. Like you don't sling a ball up in double coverage when you got 2 minutes on the clock and you're on first down. Like if that was fourth down, I get it. But
okay, JD. So I'm going to need your help with this. So this was the final play. In OT. As I said, we're at our own 41. So you've got Boutte. There's Boutte there. Obviously, that's either Henry or.
That's Henry on that one, and then Bourne on the bottom.
And then Bourne on the bottom. So people either blame Drake Maye for throwing the deep shot, or they blame Boutte for not trying on the catch.
I strongly disagree with the blaming Boutte here. This is something that really bugged me as a wide receiver myself. When you are tear-assing down the field at full speed and get underthrown, it is so difficult to strip down to a complete stop and come back and challenge for the ball because you are moving as fast as you can in the complete wrong direction. So I don't blame Boutte here at all. I think it was, it's Drake's fault, but I thought Tennessee's defense would be more challenging than what we'd faced previously, especially for a rookie QB, because they are similar to how the Patriots used to be under Belichick, a very multiple defense. They don't run one. That Seattle used to be. They were a cover three, and you knew pretty much every play they were running cover three, and they just did it so well it was hard to stop. Tennessee are much more multiple than they are. I actually think this play is designed to be a kill shot. I think the way it's run is kind of odd because they almost run a flood to this bottom side, to the sideline, this right hand sideline at the bottom of the screen, where you see Henry, Pop, and Bourne all run at short, intermediate, and deep levels to that side to try and create a flood. The spacing's not great, and Bourne falls over, which I think is a problem. Now, Amante Hooker, sorry, is over the top of Bourne, who you can see just approaching the 50-yard line under the Titans logo, and he's going to run a corner route, is Bourne, and he slips over. And Amante Hooker, who is about just on the 42, is the person who picks it off. I think if you just go back to the start of the play for me, Karl, you can see that the Titans are lined up in what looks like cover 2. You see how there's 2 deep safeties and the corners are quite far down. What they end up running is cover 3. So Amante Hooker,
he looks
like he's going to have this deep half at the bottom of the screen. And I think what Dre looks at, and what perhaps AVP was thinking as well, is if they sit in cover 2 and he's got Boutte on that post in the middle of the field, this is on and this is a kill shot. And I think he probably says to Drake, if you see cover 2 here, take that shot and we can end the game right now. And I think that is what he thought he saw, because it looks like Hooker is going to sit here over the top of Bourne. But either some people think it might be cover 2 and that he sees Bourne slip and he just bails and reads Drake's eyes. I think it looks like cover 3 to me. And I think he's trying to bait Drake into making that throw to the post.
What I'm looking for here, so we've got this defender here marking on Bourne. This safety here, he ain't looking where Bourne is. He's looking up there.
That's what
he's
makes
looking
me
up
think
towards Boutte.
Yeah, he's baiting Drake into thinking it's cover 2.
There we go.
But he's reading Drake's eyes and he's going to open up. But you can see there Bourne starting to slip. So some people, I think there's been a bit of debate whether they think he saw Bourne slip and he's gone, oh, cool, he's down, I'm going. And he's just reading Drake's eyes. I think it's cover 3. I think they baited Drake intentionally into trying to take a kill shot and just they got him. And again, it's a rookie QB on his 52nd, 53rd drop back of a game. And it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, he could have thrown it a little more out to the left side that way, so he gets nowhere near it. But
if you think that's cover 2,
he's going from right to left though.
Yeah, he's throwing from the right hash. But if you think that's cover 2 as well, you want to hang that in the middle of the field because that's where the gap is. In cover 2, if you've got 2 deep safeties, that kill shot in the hole there, that hole between the 2 safeties, is where you want to put it. Which makes me think he read cover 2 when they were running cover 3. And
he's already looking down already, and he's seen, and there's Pop there. There was no way he was going to just quickly throw that out to Pop there because this defender's bearing right down on it. So this was basically either get rid of the ball or go for the kill shot, and he went for the kill shot. And unfortunately, as we start putting the,
and I actually think is it Harold Landry who's kind of bearing down on him there? I think he probably impacts his throwing motion as well because he throws the ball from his own 30-yard line there, and it lands at about the 10-yard line.
Yeah, so
that's a 55, 60-yard throw. If he can't put his all into it, he's not going to be throwing beyond that.
Yeah,
I still think potentially if he can hit that sort of 65, 70-yard throw, potentially that does land and gives Bourne an opportunity. But I just don't think he can step into the throw. It's an ill-advised throw, but a lot of what Drake did is ill-advised.
Roll it back a bit, Karl. Roll it back. Stop there. Right. So as it all breaks up, you've got the top guy who's on the 30-yard line in our side of the window. If you watch him, as he's got all that space, there is that out. Actually, I know what JD said about not throwing to Pop. If he, I don't. It's hard for me to sit here and say could he have done that because I'm not a QB. I don't know. But if you watch as that breaks, that's sort of like they bait, like you said, they bait him into playing that path out to Boutte. Across the other side of the field, you've got a huge window to play with.
I'm on this back a bit, but there is a defender. Ramondre trying to cut back the. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, but by the time if you get to there and he actually spots Ramondre, if you look closely, there's the zebra, And then, then behind him, there is there's the Tennessee defender who actually slipped. So if he'd done that, that would have been even more of a dangerous pass than, say, trying to get that to pop, in all due honesty. So I think that avenue was an absolute no-go if that was your third read. If that was your third read, that could have ended very badly.
Yeah. I think the check down's probably a potential there because, I mean, that's a pass rusher that he's going to loft it over, and the nearest defender is nearly 20 yards away. So I think he probably is an outlet. But I think the problem with, and again, the way plays are designed, like if the play call is, if it's cover 2, hit Butte, that's read 1. And if you think read 1 is on, you're never going to
you're going to hit it.
So he's going to go for it. And I think that's what makes me think the play call was, if you see cover 2, take the shot to Butte. And I think that's what he tried. I think he was just late to it. I think if he probably throws that, you can see where he's not even, you can see with sort of throwing with anticipation, you can see that Butte, even if we scroll back kind of a second or two, you can see there that Butte has the space.
He's got half a yard on him already.
Yeah, if Drake is winding up to throw that now, there's a chance that's complete. But he's waiting. He waited probably 5 yards too long, and that difference was an interception or just an incompletion or a
I just don't really think that Kendrick Bourne might have. Yeah, I don't know. Kendrick Bourne is trying to peel this guy off.
Yeah,
whether he because he's on his side of the field, so it's either he either sits and waits for Bourne to come, and waits for Butte to actually go through to the middle, or he bails and then goes to Kendrick because he's there. He's got another defender on, but he's already 2 yards ahead of him before he falls arse over tier.
Yeah, so I think the player that's just to underneath Kendrick Bourne, I think is the third. He's the boundary corner who is going to take that deep third. So I think he's sat with Kendrick Bourne and he'll take him. And I just think Hooker's probably decided, I'm going to try and bait him into taking a kill shot over the middle and hope he goes for it, and he did. And I think that's it. Really. But you can see what I mean about the levels being kind of odd, because you've got, I know Bourne's fallen over at about the 45, their 45, but you've got Pop on the Titans logo. You've got Henry on his own 40. The spacing there is really, really odd. It seems like something's perhaps gone wrong, whether Pop's wandered a bit too far downfield, or, I mean, obviously with Bourne falling over, it does impact it, but it's just a really weird space. And spacing's been an issue with the Patriots this year, where some routes are just too close together. The spacing's kind of off quite a lot offensively, I think. But yeah, I think it's probably not as complex as we're maybe trying to make it all sound.
No, it's not. I apologise if you're listening to this on audio and you're trying to understand our concept here, but yeah, it was an opportunity. Unfortunately, it was a missed one, but there is always that, and it was the first down as well. If nothing said, just throw it in the dirt, or at least throw it to a receiver that's in the vicinity. Play another down. There's always, because you've got still had over 2 minutes on the clock in OT still to go. I know you've got to go another 59 yards down the field, but you can do that. But with your arm, you can do that in 2 minutes. But you didn't have to go for the kill shot already. And I just think we tried to go for the tried to go for the pot of gold way too quickly there.
This is another argument for me of, if you are going to go for the game ender and the kill shot here, why didn't we just go for 2? Like that's what for me. I'm a big proponent of going for 2, especially when you're on the road. And I'm a psychologist, so I'm a big believer in momentum and all that kind of stuff. Like and coming off an unbelievable play like that we had to win the game, to tie the game. Sorry, I would have gone for 2, just because. Imagine you're a Tennessee defender who's just run around for 12 seconds, and then you think, oh God, that guy's now coming back out to run another play. And I don't care if you haven't got a good play. We didn't really have a good play for the game tire, but Drake made it right, didn't he? Regardless. So that's why I potentially would have gone for 2, because I think we allowed them to kind of take momentum back.
If I always say this, if you it doesn't matter if you're an offensive minded coach or defensive minded coach, if you're playing at home and you've scored a touchdown and you need a PAT to take it to overtime, take the PAT. Why? You're at home. You got home field advantage, and especially if they win the ball first, that crowd will get extremely loud, especially when it comes to third down, and it will help you. Home advantage does mean absolutely everything in the NFL.
You see,
when you're on the road, you go for the kill shot. You go for the 2-pointer to end it. And there's a prime example. Go back a few years ago when the Chargers played the Kansas City Chiefs. They scored a last-minute touchdown in the end of the fourth quarter. They went for broke and they went for 2 points. Guess what? They got the 2-point conversion. They walked up with the W at Arrowhead. That's what the Bucs should have done last night, by the way, for Monday Night Football.
Which what the Ravens were going to do, weren't they, before Isaiah Likely's touchdown in week 1 got overturned?
Yeah, but that's unfortunate, though.
They'd planned to go for 2 after that. And I just think for me, the main reason I would go for it is I want the ball and the game in the hands of Drake Maye, not a coin toss. Because if Tennessee don't fumble that snap on 3rd and 2 on their opening drive of overtime, I think they probably go in and score a touchdown there. And Drake Maye never touches the ball. So why do I want to risk a coin toss or whether I get a chance to win the game when I can sit here from the 2-yard line and just say, Drake, just go do some magic and let's see what happens. But yeah.
Okay, so the last play we're going to bring up this is a tweet from Evan Lazard. The Patriots had some shot play opportunities earlier that weren't taken due to pressure. Post cross here. The deep safety is reading Maye's eyes while Baker wins on the post. With more time, Maye might be able to launch this. So you've got Kendrick Bourne at the top here, Javon Baker's down at the bottom. I'm assuming that is either Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper there. So it looks like it's still playing 5. They're playing a 6th offensive line with that there. There's Ramondre Stevenson. So there's Drake. There's the snap, and there's Ramondre Stevenson. Okay, so don't want to do that. Right. So as the play starts, it snaps. Baker was took off already. When I saw this play develop, like Jesus, Baker's got some huge track speed on him. And as it continues, the line is struggling. And then there. By the time he wants to get that ball out, there's the pocket just becomes a mess. And there's nothing there for. And that play, look how much green that Baker has got. If Drake had any more time in that pocket, he could have unleashed that, and that could have been a huge score. JD, what say you? We'll start from the play again.
Well, I think where you had it paused there was 7 seconds, and that the ball is snapped at 2. So a 5-second pocket is a big ask. They do bring a blitz because they are anticipating the run. Kieran's getting what he asked for there with a bit of fullback play going on in the backfield, 2-back set. But it is sort of a kind of a bread and butter kind of classic. We don't run play action in this instance, but it is that kind of setup where you're running in 21 personnel where you've got 2 backs, 1 tight end, you've got 2 wide receivers, a deep post and a crosser with Bourne and Baker, 2 of our faster receivers. I think the route is good by Baker. I think we maybe needed a deeper drop from Drake potentially. I think the internal pressure is the problem. I think Ramondre does a good job kind of widening Hooker to the outside and saying, look, you're not, pushing him around the back of Drake Maye. But I just think that internal pressure, it looks like Ben Brown, I think, but it's kind of blurry, so I can't quite make out. But it looks like Ben Brown, the centre, kind of gives up the play pretty quickly there in terms of getting pressure up the middle. But that, I like this from Drake from a positive perspective, that if he's going to really wind up and try and launch a ball 45, 50 yards there's a real risk of a fumble happening, especially this close to our own end zone.
Yeah.
The fact that he takes the check down to Hooper here, I quite like. That shows kind of a level of composure that's quite impressive for somebody so early in the career. But absolutely right. I think that it seems to me like they're trying to carve out a role for Baker as this kind of deep shot specialist. I know on the podcast, we've been asking for this for quite a while, for him to kind of take away that Tyquan Thornton role of I'm just going to go up there and run goes and posts, and hopefully once a game we get open. But you certainly think this is something that you'd like to think the Patriots are looking at this week and saying, against Chicago, let's try and get him out there a few more reps and snaps to try and have him run some routes and get open deep.
Yeah, definitely.
We know he can get open deep. You know, he's shown it there. There was the play in the preseason where he probably should have had it. I can't remember. Was that against Washington or was that against the Eagles? The one where it went up the middle. Where Eagles, yeah. So he should have had that. But then, like, he was consistently creating separation in training camp. Like, he's getting open really quickly. So there's a guy that can get open, he can separate, and he could be that go-to for a go ball. Like, you know, obviously we've been saying that on the podcast. You know, Thornton's pretty redundant at this point. It's clear that Baker's going to step into that role. But Baker only played 4 offensive snaps in this game. Like to see that increase. You know, like it's clear. It's on tape here that he is capable of doing that, providing the time is there for him to get open. But you don't want him doing this on every play. Like, try and get some stuff where he can get the ball in his hands and create some yards after the catch as well. Like, this guy clearly gets open and can make big plays. Like, doesn't have to be 50, 60-yard bombs every time. Like, if he's getting open, get the ball in his hands. You know, you can't have a player like that can damage you after the catch, only having 4 offensive snaps. So, especially with a QB that can put the ball in so many different areas, like, I think that's something that hopefully will start to increase over the next few weeks. With the receiver play falling off a cliff, you need things like this. You need to take a gamble sometimes, and maybe Baker is that gamble.
But I think it's become difficult as well with what we're talking about with the receivers. You've got Bourne on 50-odd snaps at 50-something. You had Butte on 60-something. Pop on about 50, but then you've got, you know, Osborne and Thornton inactive. You've got Polk had 9 snaps or something like that, and then Baker has
2
4
again,
and he has 2 penalties as well. Does Polk? So the Polk roller coaster is definitely on the decline, but we're relying on 3 receivers and we're not getting anything out of 4 of our 7 receivers that we kept on the roster, and that's really worrying. Because but even then, the 3 that we are using routinely, Butte, Pop, and Bourne, are we really getting anything out of those guys that we're saying, oh, you have to have them on the field for 60 plays? The only player outside of Drake Maye I'd say we need on the field would be Hunter Henry.
And Ramondre Stevenson to a degree, because he.
But does it matter if we have Stevenson or Hasty or Gibson on the field, because we can't run the ball? We had 12 design runs for 15 yards. It doesn't matter who's on the field. We can't run the ball. So, outside of the big play at the end, Ramondre didn't add much because he can't. He's not in the position to do so.
No, you're right. He's not.
I think we've also got to be careful. Like, I know there seems to be an agenda. Like, loads of Pats fans and the beat reporters, they love Pop Douglas. And don't get me wrong, the guy's talented. He's good with the ball in his hands. Like, he made a great catch in this game, and we want to see him get targets. But the guy is no more than a number 3. Like, let's calm down the excitement level for Pop Douglas. Like, good number 3, twitchy, can make plays after the catch. Like, can be that could be our starting slot receiver for the next few years. Really? But that is exactly what he is. He's not a guy. I feel like sometimes he's talked about as like a game changer. He's not a game changer, but he is still a contributor.
I think he could be like Edelman and Welker. They had Gronk and Randy Moss. Like, he's what I like to refer to as a Robin. He's not a Batman.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
Robin. And he doesn't have that. And if your best receiver is a shifty, like, slot receiver, I think the fact that he's our star receiver is an indictment of the position we're in. And that, I think you're absolutely, nail on the head there, Kieran, that he could be a really, really good player if we surround him with somebody else, but he cannot be the star of the team.
I agree to that certain extent. I also think that Kayshon Boutte I think he would be much more better in his office, in this offense as well. And we keep banging the table for this if we actually had a wide receiver 1, because I think if you have if you have Pop Douglas playing in the slot, he's going to be twitchy as hell. You're gonna have if you have a number 1 receiver, let's say, for example, we go in the draft and we do get Ty McMillan from Arizona State. Let's say we click him and he's our 1. Then you got Kayshon Boutte running on the outside. He's your He's your intermediate wide receiver 2 guy, which not secondary callers probably don't really want to deal with because he can catch the ball and he's very good with his routes. And then you've got Javon Baker, who is just Sonic. It's just Sonic the Hedgehog. He's just got amazing speed. He can take the top off. We are still so many pieces away. But as I said, this also comes down to coaching as well. I am not going to let Drake Maye off the hook. I am not going to let Alex Van Pelt off the hook. And I'm certainly not going to let DeMarcus Covington off the hook as well, because that run defense is some of the worst run defense I've seen in God knows how many years. And and Kieran, I think I was on the Spaces on Sunday, and a Pats fan said to me, "Would you take in the offseason how did you think of DeMarcus Covington?" And I basically said, he's a very good linebackers coach. I just don't think he's ready for the DC job just yet. I think he's still got a lot to learn. And he basically then asked me, would you take Robert Saleh as your DC for next season? I said, yeah, 100%. 100% I'll take Robert Saleh as our DC.
Yeah, I think as well, it's a very young coaching staff that potentially, it's very inexperienced coaching staff. I think it probably would have been smarter to have had some older heads in the room. And just similar to how, when Sean McVay took over at the Rams, he had Wade Phillips with him. And to pair that kind of, and I think that's a recurring theme across the team, that you look at that wide receiver room, there's nobody above the age of 25 outside of Kendrick Bourne. They're all so young, which for me is probably why I would dip into free agency for the receiving core, as opposed to the draft, because I want an old head in there who I know can play at this level, who I know can provide leadership. Somebody like your T. Higgins kind of player who I know is an elite receiver. I know I'm not worried about what I'm getting there. In regards to that sort of the defensive stuff, I think it's really hard to judge DeMarcus Covington, because you're thinking about the run D and the issues we've had there. You've got your best defensive tackle in Barmore missing. You've got your best run stuff in linebacker and Bentley missing. Both starting safeties, Peppers and Duggar, who they major in run defense. They're all gone, and unfortunately, most of them are not coming back. So I just don't know what you do. I thought Tavai, as much as I've bashed him over the past few weeks, had a better game this week. Anthony Jennings is about the only decent run defender we really have.
So Tavai, as far as I was concerned, I think he had his best game of the season. He has come under fire this season because without Juwan Bentley, he's been an absolute sitting duck. But he was great. But I thought he was very good on Sunday. He led the team in tackles, had 11 of them, had a tip drill interception, and he had a 5-yard tackle for loss and a key QB hit. We need this version of Tavai for the rest of the year. We need that version of him. But are we going to get that version of him, or is it going to be a bit?
I think it's going to be harder because he's not playing his game. When he's on the edge and stuff like that, he looks much better. The closer to the line of scrimmage he gets, I think the better he plays. I think the issue is Juwan Bentley could crash down, soak up blockers, do stuff like that, and allow Tavai to play his game. Now he hasn't got Bentley there to do that. He's having to do Bentley's job. And then Roquan McMillan is just the guy can't get off a block to save his life. The second an offensive lineman touches him, he's just collapses, bless him. But so he hasn't got that help at the linebacker position that he normally has with Bentley. And again, the two safeties that we have, Duggar and Peppers, are so good in the run game that their contribution is lost massively.
Yeah, I'm reluctant. I've said it before, many times. I'm reluctant to bash DeMarcus Covington and the defense when they're so on demand. We're down 6 projected starters. You look at the players who are rolling out on defense that are playing significant snaps every week. That's just reality of the situation. I don't think you can get a fair idea of how good this defensive coaching staff is until we have those starting players back, because it's just so on demand. But I did see this one tweet from Taylor Kyles this morning. Jaquelin Roy, who's obviously been playing on our D-line the last few weeks, picked him up from the Vikings. He is ranked inside the top 10 in the NFL since week 5 in run stops. And there's a few clips on him from Tennessee that have been pretty good. So although, we we're giving up a few yards to carry at the moment, and we are so undermanned defensively. It's nice to see we've actually got a little bit of a contributor there alongside Godshaw, because beyond that, without Barmore, we've got no D line depth. So it's nice that Roy's come in and at least doing something.
True, that is very true. One last part before we get on to, because obviously it's trade deadline day today, and before anybody is announced, no, we haven't traded for anybody. We haven't sent anyone away. It's been one of those days. Christian Gonzalez had another big task on his hands today, shadowing wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Did fairly well, as far as I'm concerned, apart from one key third down. Gonzo shadowed Ridley on 24 routes. The Titans wide out, caught 3 passes, 51 yards with Gonzalez in coverage. So that's a pretty steady day for Gonzo. But it was the overtime one in third down. So we really converted a third down in overtime. Against Gonzalez in man coverage. In man coverage, there are leverage rules at play there, but you'd like to see Gonzalez come up with a play on 3rd and 5 with the game on the line. Well, eventually, it led to a field goal, so it didn't really lead to a touchdown, but still, he could have really converted into a better position there, couldn't he?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time at the moment, especially with the injuries in the secondary, it does feel like he is playing defensive back on his own most weeks. We're just almost expecting him to go out and erase the top guy and hope for the best elsewhere, without Duggar and Peppers. And, it's just all on him. If he's getting beaten, then we have no hope. There's a lot of pressure on Gonzo. So I think, as you said, it's a steady week. It's not a phenomenal week. 3 for 51 against Ridley. Gave up a big third down, but yeah, it's all right. We just need more from elsewhere. Did anyone, just on the defensive backs, did everyone see Martu Mapu can tackle like his own man? Like, what is that all about? Like,
it's just a guy.
That is just a meme of our season, that he takes his own teammate out.
It's a meme.
I think that's just the way he plays, though, isn't it? He just he just flies around. He's like a Labrador on the field. Like, he's just plays his hair on fire and he just flies around trying to make plays. And I mean, quite often he's not making the right play. But yeah, I did spot that when it happened. It was quite funny.
Yeah. And one last thing before we get on with the preview of the Bears game. If there's one bright spark, excluding obviously Gonzalez and excluding Drake Maye, special teams again, they did some amazing work. And the one play which springs to mind, it was in overtime when we kicked the ball to Tennessee. Brendan Schooler came down the field like a fucking missile and literally completely took the kick returner clean out. I was like, yikes. I've not seen one of those smacks since the 90s. Like, wow. So that was an amazing bit of work there. So the Pats return Marcus Jones. He had a 44-yard return, which was decent. It gave the offense great field position on a 25-yard return, which set up the game-tying touchdown that sent it to OT. So we have to thank the special teams for that. The last one was almost blocked by Ochen Mathis too, and Marcellus Dial also forced a fumble on a punt return. Jeremy Springer, the special teams coordinator, they won the field position battle in that game. So I think if there's one part of the team that's actually in good hands right now, it does look like it is special teams.
Yeah, and this is what's confusing. I saw a very confusing tweet yesterday where it was, you get these natural overreaction tweets and just they're by the by, but the guy was basically like, fire Mayo, fire Wolf, fire Van Pelt, fire Covington, fire Springer, and then went through some more people and then went fire Springer again. I'm like, wait a second, like, our special teams has not been that bad. And there were loads of people commenting on it saying, why have you mentioned the special teams coordinator twice? Like, genuinely, like, is even double bad compared to everyone else. Like, I actually think our special teams have been pretty good this year.
We have PFF's number 1 rated special teams.
Yeah, so put some respect on Jeremy Springer's name.
So I don't know what this arsat is talking about. Anyway,
I just couldn't believe it. I was like,
Jerry.
We're Jeremy Springer fans in here. Like, yeah,
the
special teams has been good. And Marcus Jones may have struggled on defense this year, but he has been excellent on special teams all season. He's an outstanding returner.
He's been
I would have him on offense. I'd have him on offense now. Like, he's just nobody looks more dangerous on our team with the ball in the hand than Marcus Jones. Why are we not throwing him wide receiver screens? Like, come on.
He would cause defenses nightmares.
Yeah.
He would cause some massive mismatches.
He can't be worse than Polk. Come on.
What does Don Polk? What do we do? What from here? Because obviously he's a second round rookie. Does he just need some time on the bench to just zone out?
He might need the Bryce Young reset. You know, let him go on holiday for a couple of weeks or something. Just get it. He's so in his own head. I think as well. It's just I was saying to my sister when watching the game at the weekend, like every time Polk's involved in the ball goes in his direction, something bad happens, even if it's not his fault. Like the first interception wasn't his fault, but it was to him and it got picked. And then, it was 2 penalties. He was on the field for 9 snaps and it was like 3 of the plays were terrible. And it's like, it's just not sustainable with a player like that. Right?
The thing is, he's not a bad player. Like, second round out of Washington, looked reasonably solid in training camp. The start of the season, had the touchdown against Seattle. Obviously, one ruled out against the Dolphins. But, he's had flashes. But his confidence is absolutely in the sewer right now. And it's not going to help him putting him out there every week and have fans jump on his back.
But I think that non-touchdown against Miami seems to be like his kind of point of origin of this absolute collapse.
You've got to bypass that, and I know it's hard doing it. It was the final game with the final play of the game in that match, but you've got to dust yourself off and go through with it. I mean, if Belichick was still in charge, he would have benched his ass, and we wouldn't see him again until next season.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see kind of like Drake Maye know better than we do, being around him every day, but what does he respond to? Like, does he need, a pat on the arse and say, get back out on the field and let's go again? Like, or does he need time away? Does he need to be benched? Does he, what is it? Because again, this receiving core's weird, man. None of them are that good, but they all seem to have these diva personalities. And, you've got KJ Osborne in London throwing up the call me sign after scoring a touchdown after contributing nothing all season. You've got all these issues that seem to be coming up from such young players that are not stars by any means, and it's a very, very odd dynamic. And another reason that makes me kind of question what's going on coaching wise here.
Yeah. Okay. Kieran, there's been a lot of roster moves. Not sure if we're going to know the names of these people, but but fire away.
Yeah. So not quite the day perhaps we were hoping for, but I guess in reality, we weren't going to trade for anyone major today. So it was announced earlier today we picked up a guard who's, for some reason, he's not listed on the roster moves, which is frustrating. A guard from the Minnesota Vikings signed from the practice squad. So he's replaced Zachary Thomas on the 53-man roster. So that Zachary Thomas experiment didn't last very long. Brian Hudson, who was a center that was signed to our practice squad, I think earlier this year. I think it says here on August. Yeah, in August 29th. So he's been on the practice squad for quite a while. He's been released, and we have signed linebacker Monty Rice to the practice squad. He was the 92nd overall pick in the 2021 draft out of Georgia. So a part of that famous Georgia Bulldogs defense. He obviously been with the Tennessee Titans and with the New Orleans Saints and was on the Atlanta Falcons practice squad before joining us. So he's bounced around a little bit, maybe not led up to that 3rd round draft position. So just a bit of to in and throw in, to be honest, not great. But Elliot Wolf loves practice squad offensive linemen. So what can you expect?
Tyrese Robinson was the name of the guard.
That's it, Tyrese Robinson.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, wasn't he? Ex-Oklahoma? Sooner?
I'm not sure.
But it's essentially just like for like replacing Zachary Thomas on the 53 and then just a linebacker in for a centre on the practice squad. So nothing really major. No outgoings in the trade deadline, as we said. So Osborne and Thornton are still on the roster. I think it wouldn't be shocking if both of them get released, to be fair. And yeah, the talk about Godshaw and Duggar being traded, never believed it for a second. You know, they've just been signed.
We just paid Duggar.
Contracts.
You
Yeah,
just
they've
paid
just been signed
Duggar,
to new
you paid
contracts.
Godshaw, you just paid Bentley and Barmore as well. So there was no way any of those four was going to get traded. So whoever brought that up really is just trying to wind up the fan base on that one.
And it was
the only two I really believed in was Thornton and Osborne, because Osborne done nothing and Thornton has done literally next to nothing for God knows how many years for us.
And ultimately, you don't want to trade away good culture leader players in your team like Godshaw and Duggar are sort of linchpins and, you know, key parts of the team in terms of their culture. Kendrick Bourne, probably going to move on anyway, but you need good leaders in the locker room, good people, good culture players. And if you trade all of them away, you're just going to have a young locker room with a young coaching staff, and it'll just be carnage. So it's important to hang on to players like Godshaw and Duggar. And, you know, John Jones, you know, plays maybe declining a little bit, but it's still important to have in the locker room.
Okay, right. Let's move into our short preview. So we're on the road again against the 4-4 Chicago Bears, facing up against the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. They are just about to finish off their easy start to their schedule, shall we say, before they have to go on that torrid, horrible run. All's not well in that camp. Matt Eberflus could be potentially on the hot seat. Ryan Poles, the GM, hasn't done enough to protect Caleb Williams because the offensive line gave up 6 sacks on Sunday to the Arizona Cardinals, which is kind of worrying considering the only pass rush we got is Keon White, and that's putting it very, very mildly because I don't know who else is our pass rush. Although, to be fair, Anthony Jennings has also been doing some bits as well with QB hits as well.
He's a good run defender.
He's a good run defender. The offense of Chicago does worry me. Running back DeAndre Swift. Yeah, he's going to be an issue, especially when we can't stop the run. And then we got 3 receivers to deal with in DJ Moore, who is, I don't know if he's annoyed with the management or he's annoyed with Caleb Williams. I'm not sure because when we spoke in the green room, JD, you asked me, did you see him walk off the field on a certain play and that? And I'm like, something's not right in that camp. Keenan Allen, probably one of the best short slot receivers I've seen in a very, very long while. Very, very, very good. Rome Odunze out of Washington, rookie, looking really, really good. He's playing as a wide receiver 2/wide receiver 3, I think, in my personal opinion, but he does have some good route running ability. And then they got the tight end, Cole Kmet, who overall tight end, very good blocker, but also can catch passes as well. So this offense is going to be an issue, but the Bears have always been known for their defensive side of the ball. They're not going to let up 29 points like they did to Arizona over the week. I could guarantee you that right now. This was a game I said there could be a potential 50-50 for, depending how Caleb has done. And I think Caleb has regressed over the last couple of games, if I'm going to be honest with you. Kieran, what's your biggest takeaway for this game against the Bears? What do we need to do?
Well, first of all, let's just say this is exciting that it's Drake Maye versus Caleb Williams 1.0. I think we might see this matchup quite a few times over the years, especially the same draft class as well. So that's exciting. Major takeaway, though, as I said in the green room, Matt Eberflus is 0-18 in his last 18 games on the road. So Chicago, strong at home, terrible away. This game's at Soldier Field. We will get a better version of the Chicago Bears. Their defense this year has been pretty damn good, I think. The front seven has been tough. They've got some talented players on the back end with Jalen Johnson and Brisker and Bayard. Even when he's not trying to wind up the Commanders fans, Stevenson's a pretty good number 2
Sorry,
corner.
Stevenson.
So they've got some good players. They're good at home. They've got a lot of weapons on offense. Yes, the line's a bit of a problem, which is weird because on paper, I don't think it looks that bad. But we'll get a better version of the Chicago Bears this weekend, I think. And they'll be keen to put this little poor run behind them back at Soldier Field. This really worries me that we might get our arse handed to us by Cole Kmet. Just looking at the matchups, we've talked about the Hobbits in the secondary for the Patriots. Gonzo, that's DJ Moore's matchup for the week. But I just feel like this is a game where we're going to get abused by a big pass catching tight end up the middle of the field. That's the matchup I'd be looking at to beat us anyway, especially if Duggar's missing again this week. So I feel like it could be a Cole Kmet week in fantasy. If any fantasy players are watching this, that's my tip for the week. But I think we'll do well to stay competitive in this game.
Nick, what about you?
I think everything about the Bears scares me. Everything about, you just said it about their own, their offensive capabilities from wide receiver and tight end. Yes, they've got a defensive coach, but they are in probably the toughest division in the NFL, certainly in the NFC. And I just think it's not a game that that screams confidence. And as I said earlier, I don't know how I've ended up doing this, but every time I back the Patriots, they lose, and every time I don't back them, they win. So, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep backing them so that they keep losing, because then we get number one. Season over. Let's. So yeah, just win.
Okay, JD.
Yeah, I think you're a really good point that it's that kind of number one pick versus number 3 pick. I think it's exciting in that regard. I'm fascinated. I think for me, we've sort of alluded to it already. I'm just fascinated to keep watching Drake Maye play football, and I just want to see him play more. I want more data and more information. I think he's in a unique position. I think the vibes in Chicago are not good right now. Losing the way they've lost the last 2 weeks is never pleasant. To give up 6 sacks to a Cardinals defense that just is a no-name defense, really, I think is fascinating. I think you're right, Karl, in that Caleb Williams has probably regressed a little bit over the past few weeks, and that's, I think, the deterioration of the players around him. I think one of the things to potentially watch is that Drake Maye leads the league in turnover-worthy plays, or turnover-worthy play percentage. At the minute, I think he's got something like a 5.5% turnover-worthy play percentage. He has as many turnover-worthy plays as Caleb Williams has on the season, which is obviously difficult considering Caleb has played since the start of the year. I think he also pretty much has the same number of big-time throws as Caleb Williams. And I read somewhere today that actually Drake's leads the league since he started in like EPA added per drop back scramble. And it's like not even close. And he's something like 3rd or 4th in the entire league, even though he's played 3.5 games. So I'm interested to see where he goes. I think it'll be another hard week. This is probably one of the better defensive fronts that we've played against. And I think it will be a challenge. I would love to see us try and get the run game back on track, even if that means to involve Drake in the run game in some way with read options and RPOs and things like that. I'd love to see Drake slide. That is one of my big things I'd like to see. I do not want to see him truck a linebacker again. Please don't do that again, Drake. Just go down, especially coming off a concussion last week. I think it'll be a really tough game because I think Chicago probably have a far superior talent level to what we have. And I just don't know if we can have another week of Drake dropping back 50 times and trying to put the team on his back. I just don't think that is a sustainable way for us to win.
I don't think it's going to be sustainable. Go on, Nick.
I was going to say, do you not want to see him do the backwards Saquon Barkley jump?
No. Oh, I mean, in all fairness, though, that might be the most athletic thing I've ever seen. That was ludicrous. I do not want to see Drake go full Jay Cutler and just start trucking people and dropping his throwing shoulder into linebackers.
Just slide and play another down.
Yeah, it's it's insane. But I'm excited to watch Drake play, and I think that for me is the biggest takeaway from this season after we can play in those first few weeks, and the 49ers games and the Miami game where there was just nothing to watch that was exciting on this team. I think there is now, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
No, absolutely. We shouldn't be putting the team on Drake Maye's back, but I've got a funny feeling it's going to be the same thing that's going to happen again in this game. I can just sense it, but you can be pessimistic all you want pre-game. As soon as that whistle blows and it starts, I see you cheering on the patch, regardless what the situation is. Okay, let's go around the horn. Nick, what's your score prediction?
24-10 Chicago.
JD?
I will say Chicago 31-21.
Kieran?
Chicago 27-16.
I think it's a full house. I'm going Chicago 24-17. We'll lose by a score, I think. I think the spread is -7 on Chicago, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'll just have to double check. But I think we're expecting another loss. And look, we're not making the playoffs now. So, just buckle up and just enjoy our new quarterback for the rest of the season. I mean, that's all we can do, really. If we pinch 1 or 2 more wins, that'd be nice. But we just need to see Drake Maye develop a little bit more. And hopefully he gets some more repertoire with the receivers out there. Because if they play like this right up to the end of the season, and oh boy, we really have got more of a problem than what we actually realised at the receiver position. But I just hope he can get like some sort of repertoire with Pop Douglas, and obviously he's got it with Hunter Henry, but obviously with the likes of Butte, with the likes of Javon Baker, and hopefully we do see Jalen Polk get some of his confidence back. I think a touchdown for Polk would actually give him his confidence back, because in at least then he might just get out the funk then. But we will have to see. Okay.
All right.
Oh, go on, Kez.
I was going to say, I know Caleb Williams has had his moments this season, but imagine what Drake would look like in that Chicago offense right now. No, I think if he had the surrounding talent that Caleb has, that could be dangerous.
Yeah, but the line is shit, same as ours. Our line is shit. So, we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. That's the end of our show, guys. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Tell all your friends. Follow us on all our social media platforms, and follow us on the podcast, on the Sports Social Network, and on Spotify as well. My thanks to Nick, to JD, and to Kieran. And we will be back again next Tuesday for a review of the Chicago Bears game. We're hoping we can pray for a win. It doesn't look like it will be. But all we know is this. We have the perfect cornerstone corner in Christian Gonzalez. And we have one fucking hell of a quarterback. It's Drake Mania time. Go Patriots. Peace out.